What's up, what's up, what's up, everyone? It's Jason Jani from teamDMS, and today we bring you an episode of The Formula, and this is a different kind of episode because we get to show off and introduce you to a legend, a member of DMS himself, DJ Scooter.
What's up, everyone? How are you doing tonight, today, wherever you're viewing this from? It's a pleasure to be here.
I am pumped that we get to chop it up, bro.
I know.
I can't.
It's been, long overdue.
We kind of go way back, and there's been times over the years that we've got to do some different things and participate in some different things. But let's talk about you as a DJ, as an artist, as a producer. How did you get into music? How did you find music? How did you become a DJ?
Okay, so it's by accident, sort of. I always loved music, but when I was in like middle school, like 6 disc changers were like just the newest thing. And where I went to school, there was like a differentiation between like the kids whose parents were like doctors and had a lot of money. So some of their parents already had one. And we go to like birthday parties, and I would, like, everyone brought their CD booklets. And I just remember hearing the same Jay-Z CD, like Hard Knock Life Volume 1, the same Britney Spears CD, the same, whatever it was at the time, Blink 182. It's like, people weren't paying attention that the songs were just kept coming around. And I started like being the one to go over and eventually change a CD. And I thought, maybe I should turn this into something, and started charging $50 to do that with 2 Walkmen at my classmates' birthday parties. And I also started messing around on my parents' Windows 95 machine. And every Windows 95 machine came with a program called Windows Wave Editor. And it was not multi-track. It was like literally you had to copy and paste the waveforms over top of each other. And if it didn't sound right, you undo it and re-copy and paste. And that's how I started messing with it. It was all around. I was like 13 years old. Like, started toying around with it.
So being a DJ, starting off with kind of like the bare essentials, and then moving that over to working on edits, essentially using a Windows 95 computer, right? Like
yeah.
Basic, right? So I don't know, what was it that drew you to it? Was it just was it the money? Was it just kind of like controlling the vibe? Was it like what caused the interest for you?
I think for whatever reason, like, I've always loved music, and I've always been really into soulful stuff. Like, when I say soulful, I mean like I was really big on Motown, and my parents were very diverse in their music growing up. Like, I remember them trying to learn, like, Miley Cyrus's dad, like, he had, Achy Breaky Heart was like I remember them like trying to learn that in the living room, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And like, I used to watch VHS Michael Jackson tapes and learn how to dance that way. I think it's just in my blood, but I think at parties, I was like, why am I the only one noticing that we've heard this song 3 times tonight? And like, I was like, oh, I can control the vibe of it. I think that's what hooked me. It was like, oh, like if I do this, like people notice. And I think that was like the seed of, this is interesting. And it wasn't money, absolutely wasn't money. Like, yeah. Because back then I was doing it for free. Yeah. I'm like, I'll bring my Walkman. Like, it was.
So okay, from there, so what was the next step? Like, when did you invest in actual like professional level equipment? Was it a couple steps so you got to like 1200s or CDJs, or like where did you start kind of like after post Walkman and kind of like moving it to more now a hobby, or what is now?
Yeah, well, my parents also had a record player, and I definitely put their records on there and like scratched it when they weren't around, and I was like, this is cool too. And we had all these records sitting around. So like very shortly after that, like I would say a year or 2, I bought like Gemini, like Disco Mix, I think it was called. It was like CD players with pitch adjustment, no master pitch, so everything was Mickey Mousey when you sped it up. And I also bought like 1 Newmark turntable, just because I wanted to like mess with that, and like started experimenting with that, and like I was like, oh, I can charge $100 now, because I got like, and I was borrowing a friend's speakers that like, it was in a band when he wasn't using them to do a party. I'm like, hey, you guys got a gig this weekend? Can I use your speakers like for this birthday party? It was like steps, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, is this worth it? Like, but I loved it.
So then taking it forward, do you remember like your first like event that I'm not talking about like the Walkman. Do you remember like your first like real event? Like what kind of event was it? What where you actually were paid to be a DJ to host the event, to play the event?
I mean, outside of like the classmates' birthday parties, I think, which those are cool. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is something. Like you get like the business card templates from Staples.
Yeah.
Like you think you're like something, like don't even have an LLC or anything like that. I was like doing that, but I think I did like the first school dance I did was like a moment for me, because I went back and did like my high school dance, and like I was only a few years removed from like that whole scene, and so it was like, oh my gosh, like they trust me, like they're paying me money out of like the school. You just walk those hallways, like and you are walking those hallways, and you're just like, oh my god, this is cool. Like try not to mess this up. Like staff is looking over every song you play, like no curse words, no this, that. So
essentially you started with Walkman, and now you're one of the most respected producers I know in the kind of in the pool world, right? Like, so you've the attention of a lot of different people. Talk to me about how you got into production. How did that bug kind of catch for you?
It was like organic at the same time that I was messing with music, because I was doing that quietly at home, like in my parents' basement. And like speakers were literally whatever came with the thing. It wasn't anything. And what's funny is I've used those speakers my entire career until a year ago.
Wow.
Never ever owned a professional set of speakers. They were literally Windows 95 speakers. I produced every single thing I've ever made on those speakers until last year. I bought my first, and no one ever knows that. I have a picture which like you'll probably laugh at if you look at them. They're dented, they're yellow, they're awful. But I started posting edits and like copy paste things on this forum back in the day called Jimix. And there's a DJ from Cincinnati. He had a forum, and some of the guys that are here at Expo, like that's where I know them from originally. Like Joshua Carl was on there. There was guys from the Midwest, like that were on there, and like we literally didn't know a thing about each other other than our usernames and our locations.
Right.
And I started post stuff on there, and I'd get like one or two comments from other DJs who I've never met in my life, and like that made me feel like so gratified. And like made me want to like learn more. And I was like, I hear DJs on the radio on mix shows. I'm like, what remix is that? Like, how did he do that? I didn't even understand how it worked until I started messing with it. It's like, oh, that wasn't done live, or this aspects of it. So that's like how the seeds of editing publicly came out.
Would you say that your kind of like path has been mainly like self-induced or self-learned? Like you've self-taught yourself. You've self-taught your kind of like your path in the production world.
Yeah, it's crazy because there's people that ask me like just for ideas or like tips now, and I'm like, I wish I would have had someone I could like look to as a mentor. It would have saved me so many years of my life, like hours of my days. Like, how do you make a riser? Like, I didn't even know like what the terminology for some of that stuff was.
Right.
Like a whoosh sound. I'm like, it's like, like what is that called? Like, I didn't even know the terms for that stuff. Like I knew hi-hats and snares, like I knew all that, but like, I don't like, what's that effect? Like a reverse hi-hat. I'm like, I didn't even know what that was called back then. Like I had to literally there was no YouTube, like it was figuring it out, like experimenting, like.
So talk to me about like the process. Like when you produce or you work on a redrum or you're working on an edit, what's like if you were to walk me through a very high level kind of like, what's your thought process? Where do you start? Like do you start with the vocal? Do you start with the actual the track itself? Do you work with like a synth or a drum, or and do you build backwards or do you build forwards? How do you kind of do this?
Like linearly speaking, like I'd probably save myself a lot of hours if I did everything the same each time, and I'm like working on a better system for myself, because I feel like I piss away a lot of time because I'm so picky about every little thing. And sometimes like I have ADHD, which for those of you who don't know, it's not so much, it's got a little bit ADD tendencies, but it also like allows you to hyper focus. So like I get hyper focused on like like an idea comes in and I'm like, okay, now I'm working on a snare. Like I'm a big drum person. Like I always like my drums to be, like I really don't love like minimal snares. Like if it's gonna be there, like I want it to be known. So like I love drums. I feel like more times than not I start with a kick, like a drum. Like, and you have to have a general idea of your tempo and general vibe of where you're starting with the remix, because I can't really necessarily change, like the entire vibe of the song midway through with the way I work, because it just like would just be a pain in the ass. Or just delete it.
There's a number of your edits that have become staples in a lot of DJ sets. Not just recently, like for years. You've done a lot of records, a lot of different edits, a lot of usable edits, and I think that's why a lot of your content connects to a lot of the world that we all dabble in. It's stuff that you could literally, people know you've spent the time on it. Nothing was like, not triple checked, quadruple checked, and I think that's something to be proud of, because when you see a Scooter, an edit, your name on an edit, people know it's something they can trust right from the beginning.
And that means everything to me. Like that's like makes my heart swell. Like the Grinch, like 10 sizes too big. Like that, hearing the other, like that never like that feeling doesn't go away from me. Like I still feel like the most humbled ever when I see other people playing things I make, even after all this time. And some people like say like, oh, you've done this? I'm like, yeah, but that feeling like just to me is everything. Like it's the most payback. That has nothing to do with money. It's just I love what I do and I poured it into that. And like if just the fact that anyone recognizes it means like everything to me. Like that's really what it's about.
So let's talk about, let's kind of keep it in this direction, but let's talk about how you got to DMS. Let's talk about the DMS kind of collaboration and you being part of the family and how that all kind of came about, if you don't mind.
I think like the biggest jump off transition from free posting on forums I was doing to the point where like I got traction. So I made a little like name for myself among like facets of the internet. But then I think it was like 2004 is when like AM was really starting to make a name for himself like outside of just LA. And he was from Philadelphia, which is like my neck of the woods. And I was just really into like always loving all types of music. And Crooklyn Clan was a website at the time, for those of you that don't know. I mean, if you're watching this, I'm sure you probably know. That was like it. Like that was the website. Like everyone and their mother was on that site who was anyone important in the DJ community. It was a very like tight-knit bunch of people. And it was like every DJ, like everyone's name was on there. And I got put on their submission page, and I was ranked up there long enough, and they offered me a position. And I rode that out, and it was an amazing run. And Scissorhands and Riz really like were amazing through that whole process, like from a platform standpoint, because that was like a really big platform. And then it just got to a point when I had a relationship with Kevin Scott and Warren, and they've been amazing to me my whole career, even through like the very beginning. Like we knew each other and like are mutual friends. And then I just decided that it was time for a move. I just felt like I was moving kind of on the same plane for a while, and I just felt like it was a good decision to work with DMS, because Kevin and Warren are just amazing people from a person standpoint and from a professional standpoint. And Kevin obviously had a great relationship with AM, and I think just like somewhere in me, it felt right. Like something moved me to them, and they treated me like gold from the very beginning of me ever meeting them. And it was not work related. It was just like they're good people, and I just felt like a great move.
Let me ask, like out of all the edits that you've done, is there one that sticks out in your mind that you are the most proud of? And whether it's a success in the community or just one that sticks out in your hustle.
Oh, geez. It's like picking your favorite child or your favorite puppy. My gosh. I think one that I enjoy playing the most and has never ever failed any dance floor I've ever played it on, and I think I maybe like it, not from a even super productive, like complicated, was the Whitney Houston. I want to dance somebody over Rihanna, We Found Love, like right around the time Whitney passed. Like, I don't know why that just came to me, and it worked. And I have never ever played that edit and had it like not work on a dance floor. So I'm like partial to that, is like that just it worked. There's also like Bill Withers, Lean on Me and Major Lazer Lean On, that like always works. I feel like edits that like seem like in every environment they translate, I tend to like more. Like, and you just end up being like, that was a strike of genius. Like, I didn't realize it at the time, but like you favor those more because they work. That's why.
I feel like the Whitney track, for instance, I've heard that been played in crazy clubs. I've heard that also played at mobile events by people that are not even mixing DJs. I mean, so that it's transcended one world and really touched a lot of people, and it's been successful for a lot of people.
Everyone always says to me, it's for them, it's the Miley Cyrus thing that came out, like with that Jay-Z thing I did in like 2013, when like twerking was like a thing. Like they're like, that's just my favorite thing you've ever done, and like that's what people tell me, but like I wouldn't say, in my fiance tells me that too. That's my favorite thing you've ever done, but I wouldn't say that's my favorite thing I've ever done.
So let's talk about kind of the future. Let's talk about some projects in the works. You have anything outside of a wedding coming up in the next couple of weeks? What do you have going on? What do you have? We'll talk about personal life for a second too, but what do you have going on from an artist, a producer, a DJ perspective? That anything on the horizon? Any projects? Any artists that you're working with?
I mean, the next step for me is definitely, people have been saying to me for so many years, like, you just need to make original music, and like that's my next goal. After the wedding comes by, like my next major goal. I'm in talks with an artist of great substance that I've known for a lot of years, and I just am kind of the belief that I don't want to say, it's like talking about a no-hitter before it happens. I have some things in the works with artists that I have a great relationship with, and we've talked a lot recently, and it's just a matter of getting the music to them and like putting it together. So my next step is, I'd like to get a song on the radio. That's kind of my next, like, okay, let's see if you can do it. It's just, you want to always grow, and you just feel like, okay, I know what I've been doing, but I want to see where I can push it, and like that is my next kind of like man on the moon moment. For me, like my next goal. So
let's talk about personal life for a quick minute. Wedding coming up. How is life? Has it been easy to balance life being a DJ that plays out, someone that spends a lot of time in the studio, and then someone that also has a relationship, that requires time and energy and all that? Do you feel like that? I guess talk to me a little bit about balance in life and just the personal side of Scooter.
I mean, I'm a big-hearted person, and if anyone knows me, I feel like I try to convey that. Like, it's really hard sometimes to get to know people if you don't talk to them on a consistent basis. I mean, I really do try to like reach out to DJ friends I know I've talked to, just how's life and stuff. Balancing it takes effort. You can't, I definitely think that if you don't consciously make time for like a partner with what we do, it could very easily, be unfair to somebody else, especially if they don't fully understand what all this goes into, because it's very emotionally, mentally draining sometimes. It does require like traveling, weird hours, like some people just, it's by no fault of theirs. If anything, I think maybe we as professionals sometimes get lost in our own stuff, and our egos like it's like, okay, my name's on my business card, like people know me, like you subconsciously like forget like there's other things, people have feelings, you need to honestly make time for that. And if you don't, or like, yeah, if you don't do that, I feel like sometimes relationships probably aren't cut out for some people that in the industry that we do. It goes the same for actors and musicians and anything that just like requires so much time to hone your craft. It's ongoing. People need to understand that. I'm very fortunate, like in that way, because my fiance totally gets it. Like she knows how to set up my turntables at weddings, and like it's insane. Like she's so good and like puts up with the loops of the same 10 seconds of a song at home. All hours of the night. Sometimes when I'm trying to get something done. I think I found, she's definitely like a unicorn in that way. So I'm blessed. I don't know how many are out there, but I would say like sometimes the universe and the man up above like gives you a good one and you got to hold on. So I think there's a lot of that aspect to it too, because not everybody's cut out to be on the other side of what we do. Like,
now, I appreciate the story and the insight to a little bit about you. And I know that this world is definitely going to respect a lot of what you're saying here. I want to wrap this with a question I ask a lot of people. If you were to offer a piece of advice to someone that was coming up in the business, whether they're a subscriber to the platform, there's someone that's just dabbling in the platform, looking to maybe be a DJ one day or considering it, or someone that's looking to take their career to another level, enter the production world, have at it, someone that's been doing it a little while now, what would you tell me to tell them? Or what would you say directly to someone if you could pay it forward in hopes of helping someone get to the next step, the next level, the next phase of whatever they have in front of them?
Definitely humble yourself and at all times. Like there's been moments, that have come up and it's sometimes the most unconventional ways. I've met people I've gotten opportunities just from being open to listening and like checking your ego and checking what you think you need to be or should be doing. There's people you stand next to in the elevator like that could change your life, and the further you go along, I think, especially now with social media, it's very easy to get falsely inflated with confidence. And it's like your friends are telling you you're the best, and they see you at the local bar if you're just starting, or you do one event and you think, oh, I'm the man. Like, always humble yourself. I think that, maybe that's bad advice in the cutthroat world we live in, but I think for me personally, I like to see people that keep their feet firmly planted in the ground no matter how much they accomplish. And I think that just translates to vibes and people giving you opportunities because they think you're a reliable person, you're responsible. Like it goes a long way. That would be my major thing, to just like always keep planted in the front of your mind, like when you're navigating this tricky world of business and this DJ communities.
It is a complex world, but it's very good advice. And I appreciate you, man. I mean, someone I'm proud to call a friend, a brother in the family. That's
Thanks
it,
for having
man.
me, man.
It's good. Real quick, let's talk about social handles. Where can everyone connect to you that's not connected to you yet? Instagram, Facebook, the whole deal.
Yeah, Instagram's just DJ Scooter. Snapchat is just DJ Scooter. Twitter is DJ Scooter Music. And Facebook is DJ Scooter Fan. So follow me.
That's it. And also, be sure to check back weekly because this man drops gems on the DMS platform weekly for you to spice up your sets, freshen up your playlist, and take your game to a whole nother level. So on behalf of DMS, we'd like to thank you for checking out this episode of The Formula. We'd love to invite you to check out the description fields for the links and Scooter's contact information as well as my own. And thank you so much. Be sure to hit subscribe if you're not yet connected to us here. And be sure to look out for another upcoming episode of The Formula in the weeks ahead. Thanks for watching.